Alright, good morning everybody, good morning. This is frankly not a video that I expected to make. I mean, I know I did say that if a Coliseum video did well that I'd do XD shortly afterward, but I honestly didn't expect that video to do that well. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so very much for the support in these crazy times. It means the world to me. I hope you've been enjoying these videos as much as I enjoy making them. But sentimental stuff aside, you guys came to see a Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness video, and dang it, you're gonna get one. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, despite the vastly different title, is a sequel to Pokemon Coliseum released in 2005 for the Nintendo GameCube. The events of this game's story take place 5 years after the conclusion of Coliseum. The premise is mostly the same as Coliseum. It can function as your 3D battle simulator for Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Fire Red, or Leaf Green, and the story once again revolves around Shadow Pokemon and thwarting the plans of Cypher to take over the Ore region. So if you watch the Coliseum video, then you're good. There's nothing amazingly new here to add on. First, let's discuss the Shadow Pokemon. One of the main draws of this game over Coliseum is the expansion of the Shadow Pokemon list, being nearly doubled from Coliseum's 48 to 83, giving you far more options to customize your team and increase replayability. On top of that, this game actually gives you wild Pokemon to capture. 9 of them to be exact. But you can add Meditite, Shuckle, and Larvitar to that list by trading some of your wild Pokemon to Duking and Pyrite Town. They even come with some special moves like Dragon Dance on Larvitar and Shadow Ball on Meditite, making these some good picks to go after. Finally, there's a non-Shadow Elekid that you can obtain at Outskirt Stand by completing a side quest that involves purifying the client's Shadow Togepi for him. Of course, you can always just be a Jagoff and keep the Togepi, which means there's a grand total of 96 obtainable Pokemon in this game, exactly double of what you got in Coliseum, and that's not even counting their various evolutions. Even though Fire Red and Leaf Green had already come out a year prior, XD follows the same trend set by Coliseum, with most of the obtainable Pokemon notably being the ones absent from the Hoenn region's Pokedex, this time with a larger emphasis on the missing Kanto Pokemon instead of Johto, though there is a bit of Johto and Hoenn Pokemon that you can still catch. Hey, it's either this or completing that long and confusing post-game quest in the Sevi Islands if you want to have all these Pokemon in your Hoenn games. To me, this is a little bit more fun. Now, getting into the actual story, you'll immediately notice quite a tonal shift from Coliseum. XD does have a very intriguing opening cutscene with Shadow Lugia appearing and carrying the SS Libra out of the ocean. Sure, it ruins the surprise of who XD001 is, but what the heck, you already saw the box art. But immediately after that, you're introduced to this guy. The protagonist of this game is Michael, and while he's not bad by any means, he's definitely nothing like Wes. Can't lie, it's a bit disappointing to go from a Team Snag'em member gone rogue to just another kid who lives with his mom and a professor. Oh, and Jovi's there too, for some reason. In the beginning of the story, Professor Crane is targeted and kidnapped by a resurgent Cypher and hauled off to their familiar lab in the desert. Hey Cypher, once your secret labs are found, you usually abandon them because they aren't secret anymore. Just a heads up. Anyway, you find the secret lab, go figure, take the professor back, and finish completion on the Purified Chamber. Now let's take a quick break and discuss one reason why XD is vastly preferred over Coliseum by the majority of the fanbase other than the much larger roster of catchable Pokemon, and that would be the insane quality of life buffs. Purifying Shadow Pokemon was tedious in Coliseum, the heart gauge just dropped way too slowly. In XD, with nearly double the Shadow Pokemon, this process has been significantly sped up. Not only are your traditional purification methods like battling, walking, and massaging more effective, but you also have this wonderful gift in the form of the Purified Chamber, where you can line up non-Shadow Pokemon by their type weaknesses around a Shadow Pokemon to hasten the purification process. If you have enough Pokemon to spare, then you can run up to 9 of these babies in the background while you explore the region. You can also purify your Pokemon directly from the Purified Chamber instead of taking them to the Relic Forest. Oddly, despite playing a major role in the previous game, both Celebi and the Time Flutes used to instantly purify Pokemon are conspicuously absent in XD, probably just because the process was easy enough that you no longer needed their assistance. Anyway, as the game continues, you learn more about Cypher's return and how their sphere of influence is slowly expanding. This leads to my personal favorite part of the game, where Phoenix City, a location in Coliseum that was previously very peaceful, is completely taken over by Cypher. All the townspeople are locked away in the basement underneath the pre-gym, while Cypher goons steal the identities and lives of all the citizens above ground. I know, it sounds cheesy and cartoony, but it's really kinda creepy when you're playing through it. It almost feels like an episode of The Twilight Zone. After that, you explore the SS Libra from the opening cutscene in the game, where you're tasked with finding a runaway Bonsly. Yes, there's actually 2 Gen 4 Pokemon who appear in this Gen 3 game, one being the Bonsly and the other being a Munchlax, which can occasionally eat your Pokesnacks at the Pokespots, triggering a false alarm for a wild Pokemon. Fun fact, by the way, you can actually battle with this Bonsly in the Battle Bingo minigame later on. Its only move is Rock Slide, but this does mark the only time in Pokemon history where you can use a Pokemon prior to their official release in a main series game. and that is pretty cool. Anyway, shortly afterward you get mugged by some Team Snag'em grunts and your snag machine is briefly stolen, preventing you from catching any new shadow Pokemon. You then track down Team Snag'em's hideout and battle the goons who took it from you, including a guy named Biden who forgets who you are, proving that Pokemon XD was way ahead of its time. Finally, you infiltrate the Cypher Key Layer where they're actually making the shadow Pokemon. Okay, so they actually did learn something between Coliseum and this game. I take back my previous statement. And after countless long battles, you learn the true identity of Cypher's new leader and set off to Citydark Isle where you go through even more battles. I'm really conflicted on this part of the game. Yes, I love challenges, and Citydark Isle is certainly that, with it being a gauntlet of the game's toughest trainers, including a whopping 36 of this game's 83 shadow Pokemon. It certainly makes a case for being the toughest single area in all of Pokemon. But I don't know, I never really liked how slow and grindy the end of this game feels. You go straight from the Key Layer to Citydark Isle, and between the two areas that's most of the game's shadow Pokemon. I always feel like these should have been better spaced out. I wish they had removed quite a few of the trainers here and moved them and their shadow Pokemon to earlier points in the game. In these two areas, the game basically becomes move 5 steps, do a really long battle, rinse and repeat 50 times. I guess I would have liked these areas as more Victory Road-like locations with alternate connecting routes and some exploring, not just a straight path filled to the brim with trainers. It's simultaneously really tough, but also really boring. I can't say I've really experienced this issue anywhere else in Pokemon, and it does hurt my overall perception of this game. In the Coliseum video, I talked a lot about the cool double battle techniques that made that game both refreshing and challenging. This game is still challenging, but not in the same way. In fact, much to my displeasure, a lot of the bosses don't even have good double battle strategies, even in the late game. Gorrigan is the only exception who uses the same Protect and Earthquake strategy that Takeem used in Coliseum. Honestly, if this whole game was played with single battles, it wouldn't feel as different as Coliseum would. It's more that they have strength in numbers, and also Shadow Pokemon are just way more broken in this game than in Coliseum. Shadow moves are now super effective against everything, and they also have way more Shadow moves than just Shadow Rush, some of them with devastating power. It's cool to see them expand on Shadow Pokemon like this, but it feels like a cheaper method of creating difficulty than making a team that utilizes a double battle strategy. My only other gripe with XD is that, ironically, it feels like a lighter game than its predecessor. I mean, when you buy XD Gale of Darkness, you expect some darkness. I mean, there's still the kidnapping in the beginning and corrupted Pokemon and the whole Phoenix City being held captive underground thing, but it doesn't really have that same dark, gritty tone the Coliseum had throughout it. Even at its very darkest, XD never feels like Coliseum. The game feels a lot safer this time around, from the new protagonist to the newly added locations to the story, but that's just my opinion. Finally, let's discuss Shadow Lugia. Like the Ho-Oh challenge at Mount Battle and Coliseum, the grand prize of XD is purifying the supposedly unpurifiable Shadow Lugia. To do this, you have to have caught most of the Shadow Pokemon in the game, enough to completely fill all 9 sets in the Purified Chamber and have their tempo set to max. And once that freeform jazz is flowing, the purification happens instantly. It's not an incredibly tough task if you've kept up with your Shadow Pokemon catching throughout the story, but believe it or not, it's a feat that I never accomplished until last year. After the purification is finished, you may transfer Lugia to your mainline Gen 3 games, which, like Ho-Oh before it, was incredibly difficult to obtain otherwise. But wait, we're not done yet. Call right now and we'll double that offer. That's right, for catching all of this game's roaming Shadow Pokemon, you were presented with one final Shadow Pokemon to catch, being Dragonite, wielded by none other than the legendary Mirror Bee himself, who is now cosplaying as Michael Jackson. So in a nutshell, that's Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, the last 3D home console RPG that we would see until Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee in 2018. So which GameCube title did I enjoy more? It's a really tough decision because they're both great games. Like I said earlier, most people seem to prefer XD to Coliseum, and I can totally see why. More Shadow Pokemon, great quality of life changes, and overall, there's just more story content. But I'll have to take the unpopular opinion. I like Coliseum more for its tonal consistency and its better usage of double battles. I feel like Coliseum's difficulty comes more from challenging your mind than simply overwhelming you with waves of opponents. But I love XD all the same. Regardless of which one you prefer, I think most can agree that these were 2 of the greatest Pokemon spin-off titles ever made. And like I said at the end of the Coliseum video, I'd love if either one or even both of these got remastered one day. Heck, put them together in one game if people are skeptical of the $60 price tag. The success of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX proves there is a market for remakes of Pokemon spin-off titles, and I think that these are some easy frontrunners in that conversation. Anyway, that's all for today's video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.